Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Albert Park in Melbourne, Australia for the first round of Season 2 of the GRL Formula Sunrise Championship. My name is Edward Hunter. Alongside me in broadcast direction will be Alexei Zagrodnev. We should have a field of over 25 Formula Sunrise drivers, all from different parts of Asia, a couple from Europe as well, looking to the very, very best that those continents have to offer, looking to entertain us today. So we should have a field of 26 drivers from about just under. Let's see. There's a couple of very closely related teams, but I believe it's about there's about 18 or 19 different teams taking part. Most with only one driver, but a couple like Blue Steel Racing that have stacked the deck very much in their favor then. So warm-up is just a minute away from finishing, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it is the man you see leading the warm-up that is going to start from pole position. Mika Hakimi, of course, Malaysian driver, who of course has got lots of experience in R Factor 2 and sim racing. Of course, was the champion in the esports endurance series a couple of years ago, back in the I think it must have been the 5th season, because we just finished season 6, where they didn't have a particularly spectacular title defense despite winning in Imola. And Hakimi, of course, also raced in Formula Sim Racing for the Brabham Esports team, which was then called Brabham Marnage, where he scored a couple of points, but he also ended the season with, I think, 4 or 5 crashes in a row. So certainly his record in single seat is not quite as well, he's definitely got the speed. His finishing record is not quite as impressive as in endurance. As we look at him just just about being given room by someone who comes through to lap them. The checker flag for the warm-up is out, as Hakimi is now going to try complete this lap as he goes into the 11-12 chicane, one of the fastest direction changes on the circuit there, especially in these Formula Tatus sort of F4 level cars. Would normally race in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Series in New Zealand. And there we go. Looks like the server has timed out. We're just about to see the grid form in front of us for the formation lap then. And it looks like we definitely got at least 17 on the grid of the 26 that signed up, which is certainly a positive. We're just looking at the live chat. There's lots of support for Mika Hakimi and Sharik Zulkarnain, which is great. So Zulkarnain is starting from 5th, Hakimi starting from pole position. I think both drivers for the Blue Steel Racing team, of course. But of course, we've got some pretty decent competition here. Zakirov on the front row, of course. So he is a driver for Team Phoenix, of course, number 71. So you see if he can spoil the party for Hakimi. Couple of Cyberlinks teams, but yes, so Mika Hakimi's teammate is Anson Yong in the number 5. And then it's the BSR Academy, which has got Amir Hazik, another fellow commentator friend of mine, and Zhang Ming in the number 6. We were having a few technical issues getting everyone on the server prior to this, so fingers crossed connection holds for most of these drivers, because we actually saw Hakimi set the pole time and then get disconnected from the server during qualifying. So let's hope connection to Malaysia is a little bit better, or at least holds for slightly longer, because there's 26 laps of racing, of course, ahead of us, which should be about half a full Grand Prix distance, effectively. So we're looking at, in these cars, maybe 45 minutes, half an hour. Let's look at Hakimi, just making sure the steering still works. There's Zakirov getting on the grid. And there we go. The field released for the formation lap then. So this might be a good opportunity to briefly go through the grid order then, as Hakimi is certainly taking his time on the way into the first corner. But of course, it's Mika Hakimi starting on pole for Blue Steel Racing. Then it is Mr. Alexander Zakharov that will start in second. Anton Young will start in third, in the second of the Blue Steel racing cars. Then it has Hakiesh Giva, the BSR Skunk Works, the junior team, starting in fourth. Sharik Zolkwanin will start fifth in the second Skunk Works. Then it's Amir Hazik in sixth for BSR Academy, ahead of Alexander Maltsev for Khyber Luntinks, and then somebody else in eighth. In ninth is Ahmed Jismin. Then it is Kong Zhangming in 10th. Mark Donderkambi will start 11th, ahead of Pavel Chernobukov. Aaron Lim will start 13th, and it is Karl Struhal in 14th. Doesn't seem to be a team for Karl Struhal. Sawan Bari will start 15th, ahead of Gennaro Yusuf. And finally, in 17th position, it's Danitra Lazruadi. Kasatcha Sim Racing Jakarta, of course, in Indonesia. The Jakarta, no strangers to the world of racing, because of course there's the Formula E race that takes place in the middle of Jakarta, which I believe is the capital of Indonesia. And apologies, it was Nikurashkov who starts the race in 8th position. Nikurashov. Let me just look at it's the driver for Cyberlinks Racing, another Alexander, of course, Alexander Nikurashkov. Nikurashkov, there we go. Apologies. It's like trying to I've got the very anglicized tongue, and I'm trying to pronounce all the the sort of and somebody going well off track. That looks like one of the BSR Skunk Works cars. That wasn't Zolkwanin, was it? Oh dear. I think Yong is missing actually, so it must have been Anton Yong. Had a big off there, and is this Yong trying to get back to his pit box as somebody is spun around on the grid, so it's absolute chaos then. It's literally only the top two have made it to where they're supposed to be on the starting grid. There's a BSR car still facing the wrong way. That might well be Anton Yong actually. So both Yong and I believe one of the Skunk Works cars getting it very, very badly wrong, and Yong finally gets into his grid spot behind his teammate Mika Hakimi, and the rest of the pack that was sort of waiting for him to get himself together is now joining the back of the field then. So 26 laps ahead of us here at Albert Park then for the season opener. Of course, we've got 4 more races after this one in Yokohama, Autopolis, Monaco, and the Dubai Autodrome, which will be the finale. 17-car field is in place then. Mika Hakimi is on your right, and it's Zakharov on the left in the purple and orange car. The lights coming on now. We wait for the season to get underway, and we're now underway then, and Hakimi immediately pulls across to cover off Zakharov as the field all seems to get away relatively cleanly. Into turn 1 they go, and Hakimi maintains the lead from Zakharov. Then it's Yong, Zolkwanin, Giva, and then Hazik has got ahead of Juzmin. It's very, very hectic here. We see Kong Zhangming losing a couple of places there in the BSR Academy car, as Hazik has now truly gotten ahead of him, and now around the outside comes, that looks like Juzmin and Nikurashkov pitting together as Alexander Maltsev has gone into the gravel at turn 3 there. But look at the lead Hakimi has already got, as now Zakharov is starting to fend off the attentions of Anton Yong right behind him then. Yong looking to make it a Blue Steel Racing 1-2 here as the green flags fly from the early incident behind them. Look at this, Yong is actually himself being slipstreamed by Zolkwanin, who's had a good start here to get up to 4th from 5th on the grid. Blue Steel Racing and the Skunk Works cars, of course, effectively sister teams, so there's not much incentive for Zolkwanin to do anything too risky here. The main opposition is Zakharov, and here's Darren Lim attacking Nikurashkov. Nikurashkov very much defending well there and not giving an opportunity for Darren Lim whatsoever. Lim, definitely one of the newer drivers on the grid. We need to make an impression here in the BSR entry. He's got Dondakambi all over the back of him, and then his teammate Bari, of course, is one of the few drivers not from Asia taking part, of course. If I'm not mistaken, I could be very much mistaken there, as Dondakambi now. They're really starting to put the pressure on, but we go back to the battle for a second between Zakharov and Anton Young. And Zakharov defending well, but Hakimi's now pulled the gap out to 1.7 seconds there. And I would not be at all surprised if Hakimi leaves this encounter with the fastest lap. But of course, 26 laps, tyre wear could be a little bit of a factor here around Albert Park. So we might see a couple of drivers do one stop for safety just to make sure they don't run out of rubber at the very end of the race, especially if they're very high on tyre wear. It's Ahmad Juzmin, Nikorushkov all over the back of him now in the battle for 8th position. Nikorushkov carries a little bit too much speed into the first part of 11 and 12. He has to go a little bit wide. That will hurt his exit then, so Juzmin, breathe a sigh of relief for the time being. We're getting to the end of lap 2 now. No DRS, of course, on these status cars. It's all got to be down to the driver to make the move of a brave late braking maneuver, as Maltsev, after going through the gravel, is back up to 15th. He's taken Yusuf and Chinoporov, and now he's having a look at Lazaradi just ahead of him. Lazaradi defending relatively well, but not well enough. He's not got a great run here. Here comes Maltsev. He's got the inside into turn 1, and Lazaradi has to... Oh, and actually gets it very, very wrong, and has a massive moment that he had to collect up there, as Usman similarly finds himself under attack from Alexander Nikorozhkov. Oh, and very, very wide from Juzmin, and he spins across the track in front of the field, and he has to be so careful not to reverse into the pack there. That's a huge yellow flag. I think he just about avoided contact there, and the rest of the field goes through, and Juzmin just gets out of the way there, but that's a big shame, because he had such a decent start, was holding on to that top 13 position there. Look at this. This allows... I think there was the two teammates working together, so Lazaradi lets Yusuf letting Lazaradi through. Sorry, a bit confusing because they've got identical liveries essentially. Lazaradi number 7, Yusuf number 53. Up front, Hakimi has pulled the gap out to Zakharov to nearly 3 seconds now. It is 3 seconds, so Yong continuing to trail just 1.2 behind. We've got Zilkwanin still holding on to 4th. Eva is still 5th ahead of Ayman Hazik. And it's Xiang Ming in 7th. Nikorozhkov still in 8th after making the move earlier. Lim is in 9th. Dondakambi is rounds out the top 10 from Bari, Struhal, Maltsev, Chinoporov, Yusuf and Lazaradi. So Yusuf and Lazaradi are just continuing to fight each other, and then it's Yuzmin that's at the very tail of the field after his spin. And we now ride on board with Simon Bari, the Nouveau Sports team, chasing a top 10 held by Dondakambi. And of course the privateers. We see Hazik has got past Giva, and is that because Harakish Giva has lost his front wing? Indeed he has, so he's made a big mistake. Someone has to let Xiang Ming now through as well, as he goes onto the gravel, and he will have to nurse his wounded car back to the pit lane for a new front wing. That is disastrous for the second of the BSR Skunkworks cars. So Harakish Giva was pushing that a little bit too hard in the first sector. I think either turn 3 or 4, he must have just gone off track and hit the wall. So we'd love to see a replay of that if possible, as Giva now trying to get out of the way of Nikorozhkov, who easily gets through there. But yeah, we'll have to just assume what happened. Giva, does the steering look okay on Giva's car? It might be a bit of a long repair job if it isn't, but it seems to be all right. As we look at this, must be Darren Lim, I think, about to catch Giva. As it looks like Bari has hit trouble and dropped to 13th behind Maltsev. into the pits comes Harkish Giva. So still early in the race, he can maybe put a new front wing on as Bari and Giva are fighting with Struhal. It looks like Bari's actually got back up to 11th then, so it's a great fight here between Bari, Struhal, and not Giva, sorry, the Chinoborov. It's about 5 seconds behind them then. It's Maltsev ahead of them, of course. So Maltsev has just gotten back through into 10th. And Bari and Struhal are slipstreaming each other. Maltsev, after going off into the gravel, has now worked his way into the top 10. So Alexander Maltsev has luckily got some very decent pace aboard that car that he is driving, which is, of course, the Khyber Lyntics. Is Don DeCamby now. Now up to 9th. He fancies a run at Darren Lim on the long run into 11th and 12th. And Darren Lim very much out on a limb and a prayer to try and hold on to this 8th position, weaving across the track and all. A little bit of contact there. That could have been very, very messy indeed. And Don DeCamby has to back out into 11 and 12. But Darren Lim very keen not to give up this 8th position, and it's backing both of them into Alexander Maltsev as well, who'll be licking his lips. We see yellow in sector 3, and it's Zulkarnin. Oh no, he's just gone straight on there as he lost his front wing as well. A mistake into the Ascari corner, which is turn 13, of course. He's trying to reverse his 3-point turn his way out of the runoff area. Has to be careful not to damage his front wing doing that as well. And you can see the Malaysian just starting to get agitated there as he's desperately trying to get the Skunk Works car back to the pit lane. And that's a big shame for Sharik Solkwanin. Lots of sympathy for Yusuf in the chat as well after his spin, as Maltsev has a little bit of a go at Don DeCamby. He goes a little deep into turn 1, which allows Lim to just break away ever so slightly. So that defense from Darren Lim, well, it may have been a little bit borderline, making a couple of moves down the straight. It has worked out for him so far. Hakimi impressively, or perhaps expectedly, has got the gap out to Zakharov to 6 seconds now. So it does appear that Alexander Zakharov has got no answer to the pace shown by Mika Hakimi and Blue Steel Racing. But Anson Young yet to really make an impression there. Here we go, Maltsev well in the slipstream of Don DeCamby now. And because Don DeCamby was not able to get through, he's now very much at the mercy of the Khyber Lyntics driver behind him. To 11-12 they go. Maltsev really carrying a lot of speed through the tricky change of direction there at high speed of 11 and 12. Now towards Ascari, turn 13 they come. There's a yellow in the first sector, but that doesn't seem to be of too much concern to the front runners. Oh, and it's another of the BSR cars. I think this is oh, it's not Zulkarnin again, is it? Or is it Giva? This is Zulkarnin again, so immediately after coming out of the pits, or maybe he missed the pits, he's just gone straight on at turn 1. Potentially he may have lost the front wing again, and that Skunk Works car looking very, very badly damaged there. The huge issues for the Skunk Works team. Both cars at the very, very back of the field. Now Giva is still going in 16th, about 7 seconds behind Yusuf. Lots of support for Blue Steel Racing and for Alexander Maltsev. This man, Trenchev Meltvi, saying Maltsev is the greatest of all time. So we'll have to see, but he's certainly having a very, very strong comeback so far. But he's got to get through on Don DeCamby and Lim if he really wants to make any progress towards the front of the field. Ideally, he'd be aiming for a top 5. But 9th at the moment. Certainly better than 17th, where he was running at the start after going in the gravel, but Alexander will certainly be aiming a little bit higher than that, as Struhal has gone into the pits as well, potentially for a new front wing himself, and he's got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So it's gone very, very wrong very, very quickly for Carl Struhal in the Apex Quest car. Bit of a stalemate then between Lim, Don DeCamby and Maltsev. We about to start lap 9 of the race. And Maltsev, no, we are on lap 8, sorry, not lap 9. I was trying to figure out how far ahead Hakimi was, but he's obviously much further ahead than I realised. Maltsev then within about 3/10 of Don de Cambi. And there is, of course, a little bit of dirty air when you're following through some of the corners, but it gives you a slight amount of slipstream down the straight as Don de Cambi and Maltsev just about get it turned in for the turn 1-2 complex. And of course, Maltsev has got to nail his exits here if he wants any chance of challenging Don de Cambi. And Don de Cambi, of course, is getting a little tow from Darren Lim now as well. So it's a difficult position for Maltsev. If it was just Don de Cambi on his own, he might be able to fly past into the 9-10 really fast corners towards 11 and 12 chicane. Since Lim is here as well, he's sort of got to hope that one of them prevails and pulls away from the other. Don de Cambi now is pulling to the outside, and Darren Lim is going to swerve once more to block Don de Cambi's path. Here we go, Don de Cambi's now got to the inside. He's got to wheel alongside into 11 and 12. Surely Darren Lim will have to give way, and he almost turns in on him there. But Don de Cambi has made it through. Maltsev goes off track, trying to follow in close behind them. That's what I was talking about. The dirty air can be a bit of a hindrance in that situation. But that was a good move from Marv Don de Cambi in the privateer entry. You see yellow again in the first sector, so certainly the tail enders really struggling, and Maltsev will now have to catch up as Darren Lim locks up into the penultimate corner there. The Alain Prost corner. Named after the 4-time French F1 champion. And now we are well and truly on lap 9, of course. And Don de Cambi's got to try and pull away from Darren Lim, as the connection doesn't look particularly stable for any of these three drivers. There might be an issue on our end, so apologies for that. Kimi now has got the gap up to 7.2 seconds. He continues to just absolutely run away with this race. Driver of his quality, you would very much expect him to. Remember, this is the man that did the virtual 24 Hours of Le Mans and secured the fastest lap, of course, a couple of years ago. It's very much the closest battle on track, of course. I think Darren Lim has just not quite got the pace of either Cambi or Alexander Maltsev. Maltsev now is closed back in into 11 and 12. Can Maltsev get the exit he needs here without going off track? I just about avoided it this time. And this Don de Cambi is just about in reach as we see somebody's had a big off. Oh dear, that looks like, is that Solquanin? It is. It's Sharik Solquanin's had another big accident. He's pulling right across. Oh dear. That looked like Bari. He just very nearly hit there. And that was a little bit reckless, and it looks like Sharik Solquanin has gone back to the pit lane as Darren Lim all just about puts a wheel on the grass coming out of Alain Prost into Brabham, the final corner. And now Alexander Maltsev has got the run he needs, but look, Darren Lim gets defensive then into turn 1. Oh, and Maltsev hits the back and spins across. The closing speed was just a little bit too much. I mean, he just got really caught out by Darren Lim there. And Maltsev has to make sure he gets going again before Bari shows up. Luckily, Bari delayed, of course, as Zakharov has got a penalty. But it looks like Alexander Zakharov has cut the track. And that's not good news for Team Phoenix, because this really opens up the battle for second place to Anson Young behind. It looks like Zakharov was just pushing the track limits that a little bit once too much. He crossed the line once too often. And look, you can see him driving a little bit more reservedly there. But Anson Young will know if there's a post-race or a penalty during the pit stop for Zakharov, and Anson Young could very much take advantage here. And it looks like Young has also dropped Hazik behind him. As you see, confirmation Zolquanin has retired from the race, which is a shame, given that he was running in the top 4 early doors. And Zakharov comes in to serve that penalty. It may in fact be a drive-through penalty rather than a 5-second penalty. Here he is. So through will go Anson Young. Zeke and Zhang Ming should also get through, potentially Nikorozhkov as well. Here comes Zhang Ming. There we go. Ayman Hazik onto the podium. And this is Nikorozhkov. He's going to be alongside Zakharov then as they go into turn one, the two Alexanders. And Nikorozhkov, just that little bit too short, arrived just slightly too late on the scene to get Zakharov before the first corner. So now he'll have to tuck into the slipstream and hope to challenge him. But Zakharov should have the pace to pull away here, and indeed he's already started to do so. So the Cyberlynx will have to be content with sixth position then. This could be interesting. Zakharov could be about to put on a charge here. He'll probably be kicking himself after making that mistake. Meanwhile, Hakimi's lead now has ballooned out to 15 seconds. So Zakharov was really the only challenger to him in this race, and he was about he was sort of halfway in that gap, wasn't he? He was only a couple of seconds out of Yong, wasn't he? So Hakimi had got the gap out to 12 seconds or something like that. But anyway, we are approaching half distance then, which will be lap 13. And look at this, Maltsev is gearing up for another attack on Darren Lim. He's already caught him again. But look at this, Don DeCamby has cleared off a couple of seconds down the road then. Maltsev again can't quite get the overlap he needs into 11 and 12, so into Ascari they come. Of course, was on the corners that got reprofiled. It's now a big sort of, much tighter 90-degree corner as Darren Lim gets a little bit crossed up on turn in there. And Maltsev is now going to pursue him then very closely through the final two corners of the track. He'll make sure he doesn't hit the back of him. He does hit the back of him. Oh dear, and Darren Lim just about saves that one. Is Maltsev going to try and breeze around the outside? Oh, and nearly loses it himself, actually. Luckily, because that could have been a bump and pass if he'd not made that mistake there, trying to carry that little bit too much speed. But you can tell Maltsev getting frustrated here, and very easily frustrated too, because Lim hasn't been weaving anywhere near as much as he was with Don DeCamby. Although he may start doing so now, as you can see Bari in the background is also not too far behind either, in the second of the Nouveau sports car. But look at this, Maltsev round the outside at turn 3, just enough space left from Darren Lim, who tries to counter-attack by diving into turn 4, and that's not quite worked out for him. So Maltsev actually put on a very, very good move around the outside. Knew he would have the inside for 4, or could get back to the racing line before Darren Lim was able to take the inside. As we look back at the battle for 12th now, between Ahmed Juzmin, who of course spun earlier, and Lazarati, who of course was in that battle with his teammate Yusuf. And it looks like Lazarati has very much pulled away then. So Juzmin has got to sort of pick his moment here. It's not been the cleanest race for him so far, but that could still be a chance at the top 10 here as there's drama ahead of them. Somebody kicking up the dust. That might be Chernobyl getting into issues. Just behind Bari, actually. They're actually not too far behind the Maltsev-Darren Lim battle, all of these. And that is for the top 10, of course. Chernobyl here in the... appropriate enough for the... Sunrise series. The car looks like a very orange and yellow sunset, sunrise on that car. But of course, Chernobyl, a driver for... That is Chernobyl driver. Cyber Duck Racing, of course. The offshoot of Cyberlynx is all around. There's a big incident there, and that looks like Lim has been caught out, as has, I think, Lazarati. Also had a bit of an incident trying to avoid him there. Just looked away, sorry, from the cheek to sort of figure out who Chernobyl drove for. And then there was a big incident at turn 1. Chernobyl still chasing Bari now. But now he's found himself in the top 10 because of those two, Lazarati and Lim, going off track in front of him. Luckily, no big damage to Lim or Lazarati's cars after that spin at turn 1. Kimi's got the gap to nearly 20 seconds now. Athlete Sharuk Zolkan had a wheel disconnection, which is why he went straight on at Ascari. He says that his wheel disconnects under heavy braking, and they had to retire the car. So that is the reason for our sole retirement so far then, as we are over half distance now. Chernobyl has actually got Usman now freed up without Lazarati ahead of him. He's now joined the party here. So we're about to see Bari, Chernobyl and Usman do battle with one another, and Lazarati isn't actually that far behind either. But meanwhile, Mika Kimi has got the gap over his teammate Anson Yong to nearly 20 seconds now. Very, very impressive drive. No mistakes so far from the Malaysian. I believe it's all BSR cars on the podium then. Hakimi Yong and, of course, Ayman Haziq in the BSR Academy team. Zakharov has actually passed Zhang Ming to get back into the top 4, and he's only 1.4 seconds behind Haziq. But look at Chernobyl getting onto the grass there to try and pass Bari. He's got the inside of the turn one. Oh, lock up for Usman, who goes straight into the gravel. Bari, Chernobyl still side by side, and it's Bari that holds on to 9th position there. So very, very tense there, as we see Usman has to let Lazarati through as he comes back out of the gravel there. Yeah, big big dramatic moment there for all three drivers, really. And we now look at Usman trying to get in the slipstream of Lazarati to get back free. He's sort of back where he started a couple of laps ago, isn't he? In a 12th position behind Lazarati. Look at the pace of Zakharov. Now 3.5 seconds ahead of Zhang Ming, and he's closing on Haziq here. So Haziq has got to really fight to hold on to that podium in the final stage of this race. Looks like most of the drivers should be able to get to the end without making another pit stop, but it could be quite tight. As look at Usman having to have a few goes of turning that one in as he tries to take advantage of Lazarati being a bit slow there. And Usman knows he's probably got the pace to sneak his way into the top 10 if he's careful here, so he'll have to just eke his way through. Is that a Thomas Enge sim racing car that he's driving there? Thomas Enge sim racing seems to sponsor it, and he's got the run here as they go down the start-finish straight to start lap 15. And Lazarati's going to be on the outside, but he brakes a bit deeper, gets the turn in, and now they're still tightly tucked in together. And another good run from Usman as they come towards turn 3. Usman tries to position himself to the inside, but finds a closing door, and he's being backed into Darren Lim here, which is not really what Usman wanted at all. Oh, into the wall. Big moment there, and he needs to make sure he doesn't try to just rejoin ahead of Darren Lim. But that was a huge, huge slide for Usman, and certainly not the first time he's got it wrong out of turn 4 in this race with 10 laps to go then. And it looks like Haziq has fought back against Alexander Zakharov then. 1.5 seconds is the gap now. But certainly Ayman Haziq can't feel too comfy there because Zakharov has got the better pace here. So this could be a very, very tense final 10 laps then. As Chernobyl, meanwhile, is still 6/10 behind Bari in the battle for 9th. As Darren Lim now fancies a chance to undo the mistake from earlier into turn 1 and get back into the top 12 at the very least. Time starting to run out for these drivers as they squabble away with each other. Look at the gap between Bari and Maltsev, by the way, 14 seconds now. It's a 12-second gap between Don DeCampi and Nekoroshkov, who's all over the back of Zhang Ming in the battle for 5th. So Zhang Ming under a lot of pressure then, but look at this. Usman has got the run on Lazarati. Can he this time get up the inside into the first corner? No, he again tucks out, and now he will have to hold off Darren Lim as well. It's not easy being in the middle in a train like this. Keep an eye as well on that battle between Zhang Ming and Nekoroshkov. Darren Lim then in the Nuvo sports car, trying to give Ahmed Usman a hard time here. Look at that, Hakimi has well and truly got the gap over 20 seconds. As we see a yellow in the first sector. Hakimi is probably not far behind, lapping people in a minute as we see Giva going quite slowly. Chernobyl is got the inside on Bari then. Here we go, nothing that Bari can do to prevent Chernoborov then. We go into 11 and 12 and look behind Lazarati and Yuzmin. Just a 10th apart then as Bari tries to get the cut back here. Keep an eye on that battle behind. Lazarati holding on for dear life then as Chernoborov has to do the same. Bari breaks very, very deep into Ascari and is able to retake 9th position there. And that was very, very aggressive on the brakes, and Yusman deuces it again, and gets collected by Lim coming out of Ascari there. So it's just not going Ahmed Yusman's day, is it? It's just not going his way. It's a big shame for him, but it also promotes Darren Lim up to 12th. Often in a race like this, sometimes you can just gain a lot of places just by keeping it clean. I think that's very much what Ayman Haziq has done, although he did make that move on Jiang Ming off the start line. Pavel Chernoborov is now starting to ease away from Sozwan Bari. Bari, unfortunately, is now going to have to deal with Lazarati, who's caught him. Been about 9/10 of a second there. Nikoroshkov has dropped to 1.7 seconds behind Jiang Ming, by the way. Zakharov still 1.1 seconds behind Haziq then. So Ayman Haziq could be in trouble in these final 8 laps then if he's running out of tyres. There's Zakharov, who's recovered pretty well from his track limits penalty. He's able to get ahead of Nikoroshkov, past Zhang Ming, and has made up a good 5 or 6 seconds to Ayman Haziq then. You can just make out Anson Yong 9 seconds ahead of Haziq, running in second, but 23 seconds now behind Mika Hakimi, who's just been absolutely peerless today, as there's a small mistake from Haziq. Kicks up a little bit of dust coming out of the first 2 corners. Now Zakharov will sense an opportunity here, sense a chance to sneak his way back onto the podium here, and Amir Haziq has got to have his wits about him, has got to minimize time loss here in that BSR Academy car in its jet black color scheme. Such a contrast to the Team Phoenix car with Zakharov with orange and purple and light blue and black, of course. I guess it's the same color as Haziq's car, but here we go. Zakharov has well and truly got the run closer than he's been the last couple of laps then, within 2/10 of Amir Haziq. And that mistake from Haziq has opened the door for Zakharov to try and pounce. Not into 11 and 12. We'll have to focus on the exit here. Zakharov, of course, he's on thin ice as he breaks track limits there, just pushing that a little bit too hard. I was just about to say, you can't afford to do that too many times, because you can easily have drive-through penalties stack on top of one another, as we see somebody's hit issues in the final sector, presumably just ahead of these guys, actually. Looks like Yong lost another few seconds, actually, to Hakimi, so I think Anson Yong may have just gone off track and rejoined. The final corner they both come. Just 7 laps remaining then. And Zakharov knows his opportunities will start to run out here. Haziq is a very, very consistent driver. We've seen that for most of this race, but if he can just keep the pressure on, maybe he can force him into an error, just pushing too hard to keep Alexander behind him. Yuzmin is still 6/10 behind Lim as well in the battle for 11th, but we will keep our focus on the podium squabble here. But, up front, it's not been the most exciting. Hakimi running away with it, but Zakharov, with that drive-through, has certainly had to put on a bit of a show for us. And if he can complete it by getting onto the podium, he'll be doing very well indeed, as Amir Haziq just absolutely gunning it to try and get the exit through at 9 and 10. As Yuzmin passes Lim for 11th place. So Darren Lim now in that battle with Yuzmin, just missed out then. Again, Zakharov not quite able to get the exit he needs. So it could come down to a mistake from Amir Haziq rather than Zakharov being bold on the brakes then. And look at this, Darren Lim really getting held up by Ahmed Yuzmin. Yuzmin has got the pace. And Lim is around and into the wall. Lucky to hold onto his front wing after that one. But that was a bit careless there. He just got a bit frustrated that Usman had got through, and now it was Darren Lim's turn to bin it there into the wall. Zakharov now is very, very close to the back of Amir Haziq then as they start lap 20. You can see it's at some back markers getting into issues ahead of them, I think. But look at this, Zakharov close enough to position himself on the outside, but there's not going to be enough room there. He's better off focusing on turn 3, and that's exactly what Alexander Zakharov does. The Team Phoenix car, can it rise from the ashes onto the podium here? Around the outside, he goes into turn 3. Haziq, holds his line, and they make contact, wheel to wheel, and Zakharov is going to try and hold the inside into 4. Haziq simply swoops around the outside of him, and they're still nose to tail then as they go through turn 5 and 6. It's got to be about positioning for the wrong run into 11 and 12 as Zakharov goes off track again at 6 and 7. It looks like Zakharov has got another penalty for that. Oh dear, and Usman has dropped it at the penultimate corner, and that could allow, it certainly allowed Giva back through. Now Bari has also made a mistake, dropped to 13th. I think it might have actually been Bari we saw going around there, along with Usman. Wow, the pressure very much off Ayman Haziq now, and Zakharov could well find himself back into 6th position now with a second penalty. Potentially Don DeCamby could be quite close to him as well. The 21 of 26 then. Just 5 laps to go. And Hakimi has ballooned his lead out to 31 seconds then, which is incredibly impressive. Young, still 6 seconds ahead of Haziq, is doing a very, very solid job. He's would ideally like to be a bit closer to Hakimi, I think. As we look at Usman pulling away from Suzwan Bari. And there's a yellow in the first sector. We'll have to see what that is. It's Zakharov. He's decided to retire then after that second penalty for cutting track limits. Such a shame. He had very good pace. Could have got on the podium, but pushed that a little bit too hard at the wrong moment. And Zakharov will walk away with nothing from this race. Promotes Zhang Ming into 4th, Nikorozhkov into 5th, Don DeCamby into 6th, Maltsev into 7th. So Maltsev has been slowly closing on Don DeCamby. Janoborov is going to take 8th. Maserati will get into 9th of Giva. Now looking to inherit the top 10, which we wouldn't have expected after the way his race started. And similar for Maltsev as well. If he can get a top 6 out of this, that would be very, very impressive indeed. He's exactly where he qualified as well. Big gainers, Zhang Ming and Lazarati, of course. And that's mainly because they qualified a bit further back. Haziq gaining 3 places, I think, is also very impressive too, to get onto the podium. So anyway, not too many close battles now. It's a shame we've lost Zakharov, because it would have been interesting to see where he would have come out from the drive-through penalty. You can sort of understand the frustration creeping in there. As Usman is about 10 seconds behind Giva, so it's unlikely he's going to make up all that gap unless Giva makes a mistake. But look at this. 2 Nouveau Sports teammates, Darren Lim and Suzwan Bari, now in a fight over 12th position. Darren Lim has made a couple of errors in this race, as has Bari, to be honest. Bari has pulled back pretty well, all things considered. And now it's just 6/10 ahead. Maserati is also only a second behind Chinoborov in the battle for 8th. Chinoborov's actually had a pretty good race, as has Lazarati. And there's that must be Giva, just 2 seconds behind then. So we need to see Chinoborov in defense, as Lazarati may have saved his tyres slightly better here. Darren Lim looking a bit frustrated once more. He's going to try and attack his teammate here in the closing stages of the race. What a fantastic show GRL put on here. To thank the admin team, along with Alexei Zagrodnev, who not only has been broad race directing, but also directing the broadcast. Let's look at Darren Lim then. not quite able to get on terms with Bari through the first sector. Bari just sort of playing it safe on some of these exits, looking a little bit gingerly on the throttle. Darren Lim looking a little bit maybe over-eager on the throttle in places, but now starting to get the hang of things. Nearly 34 seconds exactly, Hakimi leads his teammate Anton Young by. And he's in danger of lapping almost everyone at this point, Hakimi, with the gap that he's got. He's about a 90-second lap here, although slightly longer in these Tatus F4 to level cars. As his Giva, who's upped his pace, has caught the back of Lazarati. Remember, Giva lost his front wing early doors and has now worked his way back into the top 10. But the skunkwork cars have definitely got the pace, as Bari and Lim are still battling away for 11th, it looks like. Struhal has had to make a late pit stop. Giva has got the run on Lazarati into turn 1. Is there going to be enough space for both of them? Just about there. But Giva didn't quite get the exit he really wanted there. And Lazarati having to defend, of course, means Chernoborov can escape down the road. But yeah, look at this. Everyone, Giva is the last driver still on the lead lap then. 100 seconds down on Hakimi. And that really shows you the level of mistakes a bit further down the field, but also the dominance of Hakimi, how comfortable he's really looked, just been able to pump in consistently quick lap times, as Lazarati just flirts with the grass there, and that will hurt his exit ever so slightly. Giva wants some revenge here, wants to move himself into the top 9. He's going to get the overspeed then. You see the palm trees in the background, the lake at Albert Park, just situated in between confines of the circuit then. And again, Giva not quite able to take advantage. He's running out of time here. So we could see Harkiyesh Giva get a little bit desperate here. Skunkworks. And they desperately need to get at least one car home in the top 10, especially with Zolkwanin not able to get to the end. But Giva is just a man on an absolute mission, as Bari has picked up a penalty. That's going to hand 11th place to Darren Lim, his teammate. Giva is right behind Lazarati. Lazarati defends for all he's worth, moves to the middle of the road, but Giva is simply going to get to the inside first. Side by side they go, and Harkiyesh Giva, a little bit of wheel banging there. Lazarati not going to give up without a fight then, but Giva, has got there, and I think Lazarati just couldn't really remove himself from the action quickly enough there. That was a little bit messy as Bari enters the pit lane. Could potentially hand 12 to Yuzmin as well. But yeah, Giva had to get aggressive there if he wanted that 9th place, and it might be just too tall an order for Giva to pass Chernoborov in the final lap and a half remaining. Hakimi can't be far off starting the final lap, actually, up front. 35 seconds in the lead of Anson Young then. And that's incredibly intelligent driving. Look at this, he's already about to lap Lazarati, isn't he? I say already, but we are near the end. And I wonder, given the pace that he's got, it might be very, very close by the time they get to the checkered flag at the end of lap 26. Hakimi then, starting the season very much in style. And you've got to say, you would be a very, very brave man betting against Mika Hakimi winning this championship here, the Formula Sunrise here at GRL, the Grand Racing League, of course. And look at this, Lazarati's just dropped off the pace. Maybe his tyres are gone. It's Hakimi, here we go. It's one more lap to complete of Albert Park. And Lazarati will surely get the blue flag shown and will have to get out of the way, which will be certainly a little bit disappointing for him. But for Mika Hakimi, it's another one down. At least he's got somebody to say hello to, because he's really not seen anyone since the race started. And Lazarati just about holds onto a slide as he turns into turn 1, so the tyres are well and truly crying enough there. But Mika Hakimi, he looks like he could probably do another full 26 laps in him. He could probably do a full Grand Prix distance. as he's just absolutely enjoying it here. And look at this, Chernobyl sees Giva go all the way around the outside and onto the grass. Can Giva rejoin cleanly? No, he can't. Straight into the wall, and that was way too risky from Harakish. Giva, Mika Kimi gets through and leave the race, luckily without hitting his BSR stablemate. And Maserati is going to finish in 9th after all, because surely Giva will have to let him through, even though he'll be faster down the straight. He's got no downforce at the front, help him turn in. So Giva, I've got to say, it was brave to try one on Chernobyl. He certainly had the pace, but there wasn't quite the space. He would have been wiser, better off waiting for that 11-12 complex then. But let's see if we can cut back to Hakimi then, who's only got a few corners left to go in the race. He's lapped Chernobyl as well then. So only 7 cars will finish on the lead lap, only after 26 laps as well. That shows you the dominance of Mika Hakimi, of course, legendary driver for both Brabham Esports and Blue Steel Racing. Malaysian comes through the final corner now, and the first race of the season in Albert Park. It's victory for Mika Hakimi in Australia, and look at him drifting across the line. He's going to be extremely satisfied with that. Just avoids Lazarati there, but Hakimi, from lights to flag, led every lap, set the fastest lap of the race. That is the Grand Slam, the Grand Chelem, as they say. And he cannot really have hoped for better than that. We're still seeing the rest of the front runners getting to the line. We've got to wait nearly 38 seconds then for Anson Yong to cross the line. Then it's so it's a BSR 1-2 then, and Anson Yong, well, he might not have been able to really challenge his teammate. He still did a fantastic job there to complete the 1-2. There he is. He's finally arrived and caught up to Mika Hakimi. You can see in the background, Amir Hazik completes a BSR lockout for the Academy team. And then it's Jian Ming, I believe, that took 4th from I'm trying to remember the finishing order from name now, because the graphics are completely gone off screen. There is Amir Hazik and the 3 Blue Steel Racing cars in formation then. There we go. So Konxiang Ming does cross the line to take 4th, and in fact, it's a BSR 1-2-3-4 then. So they were absolutely dominant in the end. The only threat to them was Zakharov, of course, who ended up retiring from the race after 2 track limits penalties. And Hakimi is now doing donuts in the runoff area to celebrate. Of course, Jian Ming joins the party too. In 5th was the driver that finished 5th, of course, which was Alexander Nikorozhkov. The Cyberlinks Racing, so the first of the Cyberlinks is home, so Nikorozhkov, a decent recovery as the Blue Steel cars now start to hit each other. Marv Donderkampi, 6th in the privateer entry. Donderkampi, I think, will be quite happy with that. Alexander Maltsev, after getting in the gravel, was last, has gained 10 places to finish in 7th position, ahead of Pavel Chernoborov. Lazarati takes 9th, and then Giva, after trying to pass Chernoborov and crashing out, losing his front wing on the final lap, he still calls it home in 10th position. Darren Lim, a bit of a messy race for Lim, but he learns from that, finishes in 11th. Ahmed Yusmin also had his fair share of mistakes, but recovered to 12th, ahead of Sazwan Bari in 13th. Gennaro Yusuf, a lowly 14th, ahead of Karl Struhal, who was doing okay and then had to hit right at the end, as it's still getting very silly now on the cool-down lap in the background. And then our 2 non-finishers for Team Phoenix and BSR Skunkworks. Zakharov, 2 track limits penalties, decided to call it a day after fighting for the podium. And Sharik Zolkwanin had a wheel issue and had to retire early doors from 4th position. So that's a big shame for BSR Skunkworks. Zolkwanin, I'm certain, will be back for the next round. And speaking of which, the next round is, of course, Okayama. And if I just check the schedule very quickly, I believe that is going to be 13th of October at the same time as this race, 2 p.m. is the current plan. I believe that's UK time or possibly European time, which is an hour early, of course. But anyway, as the drivers return to the pit lane, I think we have to say congratulations to Blue Steel Racing and, of course, to Mika Hakimi. A peerless performance, but well done to all 15 of our drivers that made it to the checkered flag at the end of round 1 here in Melbourne. We'll see you on 13th of October for round 2 in Autopolis, Japan. I've been Edward Hunter. Thanks to Alexei Zagrodnev for not only running the race, but also running the broadcast direction. And thank you for watching another exciting